Okay. It's 7 o'clock, so let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chuck Mason,
Here.
Capicella,
Here.
Morrison,
Here.
Marvin,
Here.
Joanna Mason. Present.
Okay, next on the agenda, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, citizens' time. Anybody present out there who wants to come up to the podium? See someone hiding behind the banners. Just observing, okay. Any emails? Okay, so we'll move on to minute approval. You guys do a perusal and give me a motion.
We just a motion to approve the minutes from Architectural Review Board meeting on 3/19/25 and the Architectural Review Board on 4/9/25.
Have a motion, any second?
A second.
Okay, open up for discussion. Anybody have any discussions before we vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, cool. Now we'll move on to the agenda items, ZP 2025-0503.
Yes, good evening, board. This is a sign installation for a tenant at 6611 Jefferson Street, suite number 201 for Skyline Financial Partners LLC. So a bit of a history on this particular sign application. The sign itself was installed prior to application, so it has been up for a few months now. So in talking to the applicant, we wanted to make sure that everything was approved via the proper procedures, and so that is why this application is here before the board tonight. It is one 8 square foot aluminum freestanding sign with a white background and then purple lettering to reflect their branding. I'll go straight to packet page 15. This just shows its general location off of Jefferson Street. So the parcel highlighted in light blue or turquoise, that is 6611 Jefferson Street. And then adjacent to it is the Hidden Jewels building. I apologize for not having the exact address at the top of my head. The yellow dot is the approximate location of the sign itself. Some general design layout of the surrounding area. Packet page 16 shows an existing sign that's on 6611 Jefferson Street where the tenant has added their branding, Skyline Financial there. The sign in question that we're looking at tonight is on packet page 17. In comparison of the lines that I showed you on packet page 15 with the overhead design, along with the general arrangement you see on packet pages 17 and 18 and 19, you'll see that it falls a little past the boundary lines of 6611 Jefferson Street. And so really it comes down in my review to, as we've talked about before, it's visible from the public right of way. I've given you the dimensions for this. I've given you the materials. It meets pretty much all the ARB guidelines that we'd be reviewing this under. The one particular ordinance that I found that came up as a red flag for me on this particular application is found in section 58-17.6, which is a list of prohibited signs. So I looked into that. Item 3 on the list of prohibited signs is off-premises signs except for in the I-1 zoning district. And so this property is zoned B1 as well as the adjacent property. And so for me, I viewed that as this, despite it meeting all the guidelines for the ARB, it technically still is a prohibited sign based on the location. With that in mind as well, I think consideration should be made for general scale where you have a sign that's already being used by multiple tenants on site for that particular applicant that they're utilizing. And this is an addition to it. It could set off a chain of events where we have tenant structures that have more than even 3, 4 tenants that would want to apply for individual signage. That could cause a disruption of the scale of the site as well. Additionally, I wanted to just highlight as well, I had some brief discussion with a couple board members as well, and I think it'll continue tonight, but about final decision on if it's zoning administrator, planning commission, board for the actual, I guess, implementation of the approval or denial of an application. This is my reading, and I'm happy to discuss this as we talk over this application. I'm taking this from section 58-16.4, certificate of appropriateness required in the historic Haymarket overlay. So this still falls under the Haymarket Historic Overlay Ordinance. Item B, no building, structure, or sign shall be erected, reconstructed, altered, or restored within the historic Haymarket overlay unless and until a complete application for a COA shall have been approved by the board or on appeal by the town council. Review of such applications by the board will include analysis of external architectural features which are subject to public view from a public street, way, or place in light of the architectural compatibility with the historic buildings in the district. My take on that is approved by the board means ARB and not myself. And because this is a public view application that goes before the board, it would not be the zoning administrator in this particular vote. Meaning it's a board decision for approval or denial of this application. Additionally, section 58-16.8 about general design arrangements or matters to be considered by the board. It includes general design arrangement, meaning, in my view, location of the particular sign. So with that in mind, if the location is something that the board can review and approve based off of, and it technically is a prohibited sign because it's just outside of property boundaries, my recommendation is denial of the application.
Okay. One comment that I'd like to make, throw across for discussion, is the authorization we have as ARB. I mean, when you're talking about sign placement, when it comes to actually sinking in a pole, stuff like that, that usually is associated with the site plan. The ordinances that you also kind of cited, it boils down to, do we have a jurisdiction to deny something because it violates an ordinance? When our authority is more on architectural elements, historic benefit to the town, and size and scope with other architectural neighboring properties, right? So you're asking us to deny it, but I don't know if we're overstepping our authority because we're not here to cite or to enforce ordinances. We're here to just make sure that it doesn't hit the architectural elements of the town and destroy the historic value that's in place. I think if I could get some comments from the board on their feelings on this matter, but I think this is kind of overstepping our authority to deny it because it's in a placement that's doesn't fit the site plan or whatever, right? Because site plan is planning commission. So, I could see the authority being a zoning administrator putting a denial on it, or the planning commission with the site plan positioning. But when it comes to the sign itself and placement on the building, that's an architectural consideration. So I don't know how the board feels. Comments?
I would also second that. I feel like that if zoning ordinance is clear, then they don't meet zoning ordinance, and that's kind of what rules, right? We're the architectural review board. We review the architecture and the features. I think the other thing that I kind of noticed as well in the planning assessment, it says that the signage meets the requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance. In your, like, on the first page of your memorandum, that's incorrect per your summary at the end.
Anybody else on the board?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understood correctly, one of the things that we were also addressing was the fact that we didn't want individual signage to be, individual companies to have their own individual signage. Is that correct? Is that part of our jurisdiction or as ARB? Is that also a zoning issue?
Marquees and individual signs, I think that's all written up within the sign ordinance package, which is all planning commission and zoning administration. Like I said, typically in the past, when I used to, way back when, be the chair, before I stepped on council. That's what I'd always say when we would approve something. I said, we've approved the prettiness of it. Now it's a matter of, will you fit the ordinances? And that's a planning commission decision. Because you usually had to duplicate your application, one for ARB and one for planning commission. There were a few times in which we made exceptions. For instance, the spa across the way, they wanted to put a sign over their doorway entry, but there was a light right there and it interfered. And so we worked with them to come up with a design where they could put something there where it stayed centered and made sense
Okay.
with architectural designs. So we approved it on the condition that they followed our recommendations and would not conditionally offset it so that it would fit the location, because then all of a sudden it's off kilter. It doesn't align with the framing structure of the door, and architectural reasons why, right?
I was thinking maybe we'd be saving the board some time, but it sounds like that even if we denied it, they still would have to deal with the zoning issues as well, right? Even if it's not agnostic. Who denies it? Okay.
But my one follow-up comment, just in general, first of all, I'll say apologies for the typo. We'll go with the section 58 marking for the zoning ordinance. So with that in mind, I do base the entire staff report, and Emily in my stead, if I'm not here, we base the entire staff report on section 58-16-8 matters to be considered by the board. It's my view that the council has given the board authority to take these items into consideration. One being, for this particular case that you were asking about, Mr. Mason, general, let's see. It would be section 58-16.8, number 5, the extent to which the building or structure would be harmonious with or obviously incongruous with the old and historic aspect of the surroundings. Now, that's definitely up to the board's interpretation, like Chairman Larson was saying, where do additional tenants that have more signage individually put in place, does that disrupt the scale of the site, that kind of thing? And obviously you take my recommendation for what it's worth as well. I will say though, I believe compliance with the zoning ordinance is an integral part of my recommendation to the board, and I still think it's the board's power to make this decision in particular. Now, given how seriously or how exact you want to consider my recommendation, it's more, this is what's given to you, but I still think it's in the board's power for the decision.
I'll defer to the elder members.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, in the past, we did have a marquee location that we felt was a little bit too high and would block visibility for cars trying to come out onto the road. And in that case, we did deny the planning of it, but that was before the ordinances for signage was fully vetted. And I mean, since then, they totally revamped the signage package element of the ordinances. They went through a huge rework because of multiple tenants in a building and what sizes can be placed on the building and what the total amount could be. And so, a lot of that came after that decision was made. But yeah, truly, and
Can
of
I
course,
can I ask a quick question on this though? and it's just, excuse my stupidity, but who's the building owner? And the reason I ask that is normally within leases, signage is part of your lease, and that could be a violation of their lease.
Mhm. In this particular case, say we take seriously the fact that it's on a different parcel technically, the same owner owns both parcels.
But do they know that they added the sign? Because
yes,
that,
the lease owner does know.
okay. And they're okay with it, obviously. I echo Chairman Larson's comments. I think this is something we need to talk about, but I'm not sure it's an ARB thing. It could be zoning, it could be planning commission, but
It could
ARB
be-
is, does it fulfill kind of the standards that we have in here from an architectural standpoint? It's a gray area right now in the signage, but I think it's more planning and zoning.
Mhm. It could be as well that since I remember a couple previous applications, it was brought up, if the dimensions of the sign don't meet the ordinance, why is it on the board again? That's something I can talk with Emily about as well when it comes to things such as prohibited signage, those kinds of things. Perhaps it's about determination of whether this should be on the board for review or not, like you said, versus the vote. But for now, I'll stick with my recommendation and then we can have that discussion after the vote.
It's
And
not
I'll
like we're
discuss with
delaying
Emily
them from
about it.
putting their sign up, so.
Exactly. This is definitely asking for forgiveness versus
Hmm.
permission scenario.
Okay,
If I have a draft motion, if the board wishes to edit the draft motion, template is on packet page 11.
Well, I guess I have a I mean, if we're saying, it sounds like there are some of us that are saying that this is a zoning ordinance issue. So I don't think we can vote. If it's a zoning ordinance issue, we can't vote to approve or deny it.
well, we can approve the design of the sign and with condition that it comply with ordinances or ordinance violations get resolved through zoning administration and planning commission.
But
right?
then does that mean then it gets shifted down to within the parcel and then you just have two signs right next to each other?
That's where my
I-
concern for design arrangement will come
And,
into
and so
play. if it meets
if that's the
ordinance,
case, then
yeah.
I would kind of lean to have the zoning ordinance issue resolved and then come back to us.
Right.
Cause I don't want to like prove it and then they have two signs in there and then we're
Right.
like, why'd they do that?
But I thought that the part of our ordinance was that you can't have individual signs. So by denying the fact that they have an individual sign, it's not gonna get pushed down, right? It's like that sign should be done away with. Am I understanding that correctly?
The true resolution should be they get rid of the sign.
Right, 100%.
But I think the way we need to do this is two steps. One, the location of the sign, which I don't think the ARB has the right to approve. And once the location is approved, the general look and feel of the sign would come to the ARB.
Does the larger sign meet the location requirements?
Yes.
Okay, so if they don't have a choice to have a single sign, but us denying it, and they have to put it on the larger sign, which already meets the location requirements, doesn't that solve both problems?
It's already on the larger sign. It's just not seen from both sides of the road,
Okay.
from both directions of traffic.
So they have to do away with
And
that?
it's do away with the bush that's blocking half. You can see this one is
Oh,
viewable,
right. Okay.
but
But they would
from
have to
this
do away
direction,
with-
see how it's blocked by the bush.
Got it.
So,
So then, okay, so then you come back to talk about getting rid of the, but,
yeah,
yeah, but.
or,
do away
yeah,
with the smaller sign.
Yep.
Either way, they gotta do it with the smaller
you have
sign.
to do something.
Right.
I will say whatever the board's decision is, Emily and I will key off of that decision from a zoning standpoint as we enforce whatever decision is made.
I think we don't vote and defer to planning commission.
I think I'm outvoted. I feel like it's, if it's overlapping, it's part of our job to say, hey, you know what, it's not meeting the requirements of signage from a look and feel either. So, we deny it from at least
Yep.
not from our perspective, we should do our part.
Yeah, I think probably a good solution here, since this is probably going to circle around, is deny it under the understanding that we don't know what the end resolution will be, and we can't make a decision on something that hasn't been agreed upon yet by zoning administration. So,
Additionally, say it's denied, the applicant has a right within 14 days to appeal. It can be brought before the council as well. It's not my recommendation that we do that with every application that gets denied, but it's more, there are windows of opportunity to make sure that the ordinance is enforced in the best way possible if a vote for denial is made tonight.
I'm good with
To
that.
kind of second what the chair is going towards.
Do we need to amend the draft motion or just say, just move to deny it?
If you wish to add language within the motion as a board, you can for, we denied under this circumstance.
I think it's on the owner to come back and appeal the denial, right?
or else you can, I move to deny it because of the uncertain conditions of what the zoning violation resolution will be. But we'll reconsider this on a new application,
Amended application.
an amended application. I don't know if if you got enough of that,
I think so.
got the gist.
You have to say it.
Yeah, no, I figured, yeah. Zoning application, okay. All right,
I move the board deny ZP number 2025-0503, freestanding sign installation at 611 Jefferson Street, due to uncertain conditions that the zoning of what the zoning violations will be. The board can reconsider upon a subsequent zoning application
Brief amendment to the motion, 6611 Jefferson Street for the address.
on 6611 Jefferson Street. Somebody second.
I second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then we'll put it up for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Full blown. Okay, next agenda item.
Yes. Good evening, board. This is related to the continuing discussion about the updates to the ARB guidelines. I apologize, there are some updates that I have not provided in time for the board tonight. One that I have provided, though, we'll start with packet page 24. One of the, I guess, steps that goes along that the guidelines read through for, it's item C, approval by the ARB may be only one step in the required approval process. As we discussed with the board before, it doesn't give any requirements for what are we talking about materials wise, aesthetics, that kind of thing. It's just kind of a paragraph that's there. My goal is to provide a reference and a hyperlink to a PDF of a review and approval procedure that applicants can access and developers can access from the website. And then the developer and or contractor can then dive into the minutia of the guidelines themselves. What I have done though is I've created the flow chart for the board to look at right now. I already have markups on my own, but we can discuss it in depth right now tonight. So give me one moment to pass these out to you all and then we can have a further discussion. So this is a rough template of an overhaul of all review and approval procedures. And so I'm working on site plan review procedure, SUP review and approval procedure, and then in this case, ARB review and approval procedure. The goal is to streamline this as much as possible to where if I'm a resident, a business owner, a developer, contractor, whatever level, skill level I am in terms of applying for creating a design, as well as whatever step I'm taking in constructing, modifying, or demolishing a structure, I hope the steps are easy to follow if I'm going to be the applicant. So what I've done at its base level is if the historic overlay says no structure shall be erected, demolished, that kind of thing, without a COA, it's just the step-by-step process that is going through it. So on your left is a construction modification of an exterior structure. On the right is a COA for demolition. The two edits I can already think of are, and the formatting, I'll admit, in my university days, I used a lot of GIS, a lot of model building. And so some of the color coordination and the shapes used, it's related to models I built when I did spatial analysis for GIS. That can easily be changed based on preferences. Exactly. Point is, there are a couple of inflection points that I hope the diamonds highlight, in particular for the construction modification of an exterior structure determination by if it's ARB or administrative approval. One edit I would already make to that would be have a separate flow for the admin approval, just so that we have that out there. And that's just a reformatting issue. And then we have the review and comment. And then we have what the ARB's motion for approval or denial of the application is. I can mention something about conditions or add another square in there, but it's just generally showing, here's what you need to do, submit materials, pay a fee, town staff will come in and review and comment it. Here's where the board comes in to review it if it's the case. If approved, now's your next step to go to the Prince William County Building Department otherwise. So outside of what you see here, some of the suggestions I've already provided for this, I'm open to any other feedback on this and any other follow-up questions.
So let me ask a quick question, and I like this, okay? I'm always a big proponent of don't reinvent the wheel, just put a little air in the tire. When you were working on this, I mean, is there something out there already that's used by Occoquan or Clifton or something like that? Those are areas that I kind of think are similar to us that could, instead of just put a little air in the tire and tweak what they have for us. You know?
I can look into the separate jurisdictions. What I mostly did was I went from site plan review and approval procedure.
Sure.
I cast a very wide net, so even outside of Virginia, but
I just try to think of like standardization. How do we standardize this thing
Exactly.
and how are we similar? Because from a builder standpoint, I could see them going, "Oh, I got to do this in Clifton. I got to do this in Haymarket. I got to do this in Occoquan. I got to do this in Old Town Herndon," you know, and then they start getting frustrated by it. And then we start working with frustrated builders instead of builders that want to work with us, you know? So that's the only thing I could think of.
definitely. I can think too visually. We had a discussion actually at lunch today about which, GIS county database is the easiest to navigate because some of us live in Fauquier, some of us live Fairfax
Mhm.
County, Prince William. So we definitely open to looking at those other jurisdictions.
I'm thinking of other towns,
Yeah.
small towns within Prince William County at least. So at least everything through zoning would be the same.
I know Leesburg and Warrenton, they have a similar flow chart, which was kind of, going, teasing this back a little bit when we originally had the discussions about revising the guidelines. Is kind of what led to the, hey, let's make a flow chart so it's easy to follow.
Mhm.
So it's not just narrative form.
Definitely. Feedback as well on, are you okay if you're thinking of, I'm presenting the guidelines to somebody, are you okay with just being a hyperlinked reference to this PDF within the guidelines versus
No.
sticking it within the PDF?
I love that
Okay,
because you can tweak this at any given time and a hyperlink stays the same. You're not making changes in two spots.
because I know, and don't cite me on the specific town, I believe it was Abingdon. I looked at some of their historic guideline review, that kind of thing. And I believe the flow chart was either in the appendix of the document or even within the document itself. So I just want to make sure if the board's preference is appendix or hyperlink it.
I want a link and
Okay.
embed it in there. Yeah.
That's my view as well for it.
I guess one thing that I think might be missing on here is timelines.
Mhm.
Because I think we have decisions legally, we got to make decisions in a certain time. I think it would be good to place them in so that people understand how long, when they do their own time management, how long it's going to take us to go through the process.
It's kind of setting of expectations, which I think that's a great idea. Set expectations with the applicant.
Definitely. It's not just expectations either, but boundaries for staff where if we want this 2 weeks in advance of the agenda going out, then we have time to review it. Then it's 1 week in advance. So I agree.
That's right.
So I'll add timelines to this too.
And you can also highlight when things occur that reset the timeline.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten complaints where people are, oh, it's taken so long to get this done. And it's kind of like, yeah, but you went through 3 different reset revisions on this. So we're still within our expected timelines.
I mean, and if the development of this further might even supplant the narrative that's already in the guidelines too, right? You can just say, see this flow chart, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier.
And that's what you're trying to do because some people are graphical and plus some people don't want to waste the time of reading something when they can go through a
Right.
flow here.
Right.
So as an example, maybe item D on packet page 24 through 25 talks about the certificate of appropriateness. Perhaps I can summarize the need for a certificate of appropriateness and then re-reference. Would you prefer appeals stay as part of its own paragraph, just so it's highlighted to where if,
I think so.
okay,
Separate beast altogether.
okay. Because I have it highlighted just within this flow chart, but also it has its own paragraph as well from the previous guidelines. So I'll keep that there outside of review and approval procedures and the general summary of certificate of appropriateness.
Did you do this flow chart in Visio?
Canva.
Okay. I'm just thinking I could help you with it because I sit in Visio flow charts all day long.
I would love.
If I'm not in
that.
spreadsheets, I'm in a flow chart. So
I was about to say, it would be nice to level up from model builder style from ArcGIS to this. So happy to coordinate with you on Streamlit.
what I'll do is I'll take
Yeah.
this, throw it in Visio real fast and send it to you so you can get an idea.
Okay.
Basic idea. I'll look at this and put some basic timelines on it, things like that. Yeah.
Outside of any other discussion on this, I still need to work on formatting. I found code references in Virginia State Code and ordinance references, for example, such as solar that we talked about before, general other design arrangement. In my opinion, I think patios is probably going to be more ARB review. And then anything in the rear of the yard is going to be administrative review, but we can discuss that further as we go along.
Why is he looking at me when he's talking about patios?
Which is
You're my lead
interesting.
designer now, based
Oh,
on
just
our
because I put a
agreement.
patio out back without approval, right?
Which is interesting because most ground level elements we've
It's ground level.
bypassed.
It's ground level, so we're good.
But things like that to further discuss outside of this. So
Yeah.
I'll clean up and I'll add more to the ARB review and approval procedure. I'll clean up the paragraphs with that, reformat it to make sure all the content is right. And then Board Member Capicella, I'll be in touch with you about the design itself.
I'll start putting some stuff together here.
Great. Other than that, those are my main updates for the guidelines for you tonight.
Okay. Well, Ben, I know you've been working closely with Thomas on this.
Yep.
Do you have any major requests you would like to raise?
No, I mean, I think, naturally, every time I look at this, right, I always find more stuff, and that's kind of what happens. So I found a couple things to kind of make it a little bit more concise and clean up. But I know Thomas and I spoke, and it sounds like there's another revision coming shortly. So I didn't want to go too far in the weeds with it. So once you send that over, I can provide additional commentary and feedback and go from there.
Yep. And I'm happy letting the experts take care of this. So I don't know if you guys have any feedback on the edits that were revealed.
Negative.
Okay, so next steps, you'll take this back and you can do some background reviews with Ben and come up with the next level of revisions.
Sounds good.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions, we'll move on. Okay. Old business.
Main items of old business, first thing I can really think of would be the Magnolia Crossing Townhomes off of Blight Drive. Still working on a bond submission for that, waiting on a timeline for the demolition of those 3 single-family homes to make way for the site work. We're still working on that permitting outside of that. So, but the site plans have been approved, designs are ready to go to be given to the building department when they should. So that's the main update I have for that particular design. I'm trying to think of what else we've reviewed.
What about Lane Motors?
That's what I was
I
thinking.
saw the for sale sign is still
Mhm.
up.
I still am looking for an update from them on particular title acquisition that they need. I think the plan is still to demolish it, though. They have the conditions ready. Or I should say, they have the conditions when they're ready to meet them. I think they're waiting on just an actual site plan submission to get the funds for that, and to get that review going before they really give us an architectural submission and or demolish the
So
property
sale has
itself.
not closed then.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Or at least my last update was no.
Yep, and so all the relic reviews and photos and all that stuff still is in stage after sale, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Really, those are the main updates I have for old business.
Okay. Any questions asked, Thomas? Okay, we'll move on to new business.
I don't mean to take away, this kind of goes into planning commission old business since haven't had too many meetings in the past few months. There, hopefully by July's planning commission meeting, there's going to be a site plan for Carter School. It was it was part of an SUP package for the Robinson Village Townhome Development. They reworked the application where they have two parcels. Now it's that one smaller parcel sitting in front of the townhomes and then the large parcel that both abut Washington Street. The goal is to have the school itself inside the lot and then retail along Washington Street. So we're still discussing grading and site layout and parking for that particular project. But once they have a more definite idea of how they want entrances to look on the site, those kinds of things, then we should be expecting an architect to bring designs to the board for review and consideration.
Where is that? Just,
It is, let me just get the streets. Well, Washington Street and Carter Robinson
Right next
Drive.
to the VCA.
okay, okay.
I'm correct in that, correct, Thomas?
Mhm.
Yeah. A school right across from the wine place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Carter.
But as far as outside of that particular development, like I said, once we get a second submission for the final site plan, once we flesh out a few more of what the site layout's going to look like, then I'll give you an update on when we should be expecting elevations for that particular application. Otherwise, it's kind of as we discussed with this previous, the first agenda item, still looking into zoning enforcement for a few structures that have been put up outside of zoning approval, those kinds of things, and then the guidelines updates as we discussed as well. Other than that, no new business.
Okay, anything to raise? Nope. Okay, we'll move on then. Planning commission updates.
There was no planning commission meeting last week.
Okay. Any concerns to raise by any of the board members? Okay. My only concern, I guess, that means you're going to be going into training pretty soon, right? You can only miss so many meetings
We
before they got to
had
have a
one
training session.
The month before we had one because we had canceled 2 of them. We can't have 3 in a row canceled. So we had one where we're starting to do the same thing with all the planning commission paperwork as well.
Okay,
So I
that's
can see
cool.
us doing that in July.
We talk design, we can talk planning commission training.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Town council updates. Still working the budget. Right now, recommendations are instead of trying to keep up with the taxes we had last time, even though we did have the public announcement at that tax rate, we're probably going to reduce that for 6% increase of revenue, as opposed to what, if we kept it, the tax rate the same, it would be like 13 and a half. So there's a little bit of relief to the residents, but in a matter of speaking, it'll still be an increase of some sort. I think it's on average like $20 or something like that. For older residents, it'll be a lot less than the newer residents because their houses are being appraised at a more escalated rate. Um, so we're still going through work sessions, so the budget hasn't been fully vetted out. So that was discussed at the last meeting. We had the SUPs for QBE and Chick-fil-A come through. Both of them were approved with conditions. Chick-fil-A is, it's got to be vetted by all the outside authorization as well as planning commission on site plan for approvals. If any denial of design is created, that SUP is dropped.
Is that the drive-through?
Yes. For QBE, it was for the Muslim church. The condition is they need to have the owners draft up a site plan, since there is no site plan on it, to show the improvements that were required to meet the SUP. The applicants said in our discussions before we approved with those conditions that if that condition was levied on them, that they probably couldn't handle it. So I don't know if the application will be withdrawn or not. We'll see. But it did get approved with those conditions and also got approved so that it is periodically reviewed yearly.
Is that supposed to be a mosque inside of QBE? Is that what they were trying to apply for?
Yeah, the rented out space
Hmm.
will facilitate a church, which is why the SUP was required.
But but you saying some upgrades would need to be made, and I'll just facilitate that, and they're not sure they can afford that, is what they're saying.
Yeah, because all responsibility is levied on the applicant, and so the applicant's got to work with the property management to get a lot of this stuff. And I don't know if they think they could get it.
Gotcha.
One addition to that too, there's a ordinance requirement about after approval of a special use permit within 1 year site plan submitted. So that's where the condition really came into play as well, given the historic conditions of the site. It's also within the ordinance.
Yeah, and traffic analysis, and we did throw the added condition of having this reviewed yearly so that we can correct or re-steer the direction of how it gets done. If there are traffic problems, if there are problems with occupancy, over occupancy and other things. We've done this in the past with the daycare right off of Payne Lane, just because of the drop-offs and how Payne Lane is kind of I would say not a VDOT coded road, and there were problems, and we didn't know how that would come out. So we gave us an opportunity for an out of the SUP by reviewing it yearly. And if there does not seem to be any problems after a couple reviews, we can terminate the review period and give them full SUP access. But that's down the road. Another thing that we reviewed were the adoption of the policies and procedures and code of ethics. That was tabled. We want to have a full council when we go over that. But those were the three major things that we discussed at our last meeting. Okay, any questions for me? Okay, then we'll move on. I need a motion. Who's going to give me the motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Who's got the second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.